here at the Clayton Center for our December Meet the Artists reception. And this month our featured artists are Tammy Kaufman of Wake Forest and Jana Williams of Clayton. And right now I'm here with Jana Williams.
Hey.
Welcome, Jana.
Thanks.
Jana, how did you get your start as an artist?
I really just, I started when I started having kids, doodling and painting with them, and that was when eBay started. And I had been giving my paintings as gifts to my relatives forever, but I took advantage of eBay and people were buying my paintings, and so I just kept painting and painting, and eventually eBay got too big and there were too many artists on there, but I found some shops that sell my art. And
well, you're obviously an animal lover.
I do love animals, yes.
That seems to be your strong point. What else, what other kind of things do you like to paint?
I like Impressionism and abstracts. They're, challenging to me, and landscapes, but the animals are the ones that my fans seem to like the most and ask for the most. So
I really appreciate that one Holstein cow you have. It looks very abstract. It's one of the more abstract pieces of yours I've seen. I love how you just simplified the shapes of that. That's really amazing.
Thanks.
So are you from this area originally?
No, I grew up in New York, and my parents had moved to Pinehurst. So we moved down here when I was a late teenager, and I met my husband in Pinehurst, and he was in the Navy. So once we got married, we moved all over the United States and Hawaii, and eventually made it back to North Carolina. So.
Now, some of your artwork has an interesting canvas. It's not regular canvas. Do you make those?
My husband does. He is my craftsman, and he makes all of my canvases for me. And
it's very interesting.
I like the texture. I love to have more than just visual. I like the texture of the wood and even if it's smooth, I'll put, try and make it a little more textured on top before I paint on it.
That would drive me crazy with the little spaces between the slats.
It's harder to paint, but afterwards I just like the contrast and seeing in between the slats and whatnot.
It's a beautiful rustic look. It goes with your work.
Thanks.
So have you entered any competitions, or?
I don't. Yeah.
Now, where you're selling your work at Right Angles,
Mm-hmm.
I know, and where else?
That's it. I used to sell in Raleigh at the Eclectic Garden. I think they just closed, but it's great. It was a great shop too. But right now, I just sell it at Right Angles or on commission.
And you have a website that people could?
I do. It's www.abitofwhimsy.com.
Do you have a favorite piece here you'd like to tell us a little bit more about?
I think the elephant is my favorite one hanging right now. It's just colorful, and the shading. I love the picture that I painted from. It was the shading was so drastic from the lights and the darks, and I like to play with the colors in that. So.
About how many paintings do you crank out every month?
Well, it depends on the occasion. I mean, I painted an awful lot this fall, getting ready for this, but it really depends on the occasion and what's going on. So.
Do you have any new subjects you're hoping to pursue?
No, not. I'm taking a little break, putting my paintbrush down for a little bit during the holidays, but I'm sure I'll be inspired.
Well, I think you could come up with a million ways to paint cows, because they're all different. It's amazing.
Thanks, yeah.
So thank you for having an exhibit here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm here now with Tammy Kaufman, who's from Wake Forest, and she is also exhibiting this month at the Clayton Center. Welcome,
Yes.
Tammy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And you do pastel landscapes.
I do.
How long have you been doing pastels?
I started painting in watercolor actually on June 23rd, 2013. I switched to pastels in September of that same year, and it just seemed to fit what I wanted. My whole reason was I used to do mountain bike racing, endurance racing, the 24-hour races, and I had some serious injuries and had to retire from that, and I kind of floundered for a few years after the injuries. I wrote articles and had them published and trying to describe what it was like to be out in nature 24 hours, just experiencing it all the time. And nothing seemed to really capture it. And then on that day in June, my husband Steve was running an errand, and I called him and said, "Hey, will you pick me up some paint?" So he went to one of those big box stores and brought some paint home, and I started painting what I remembered from the races. And I tried watercolor, I tried acrylic, I tried colored pencil, charcoal, nothing seemed to capture it. And then I picked up some pastels in September, and I actually hated them. I thought they were horrible, the worst things ever, but it turned out I just was using the wrong surface and the really cheap pastels. And then when I switched, all of a sudden everything that I saw and everything that I just loved, it just showed up, and the pastels just did it. And that just helped me relive every minute. And that's why here I wanted to bring scenes from the morning, scenes from the afternoon, scenes from the flat light of midday, scenes at night, scenes in the evening, because these are all times when you're out there and you're in the woods on the bike. This is what I saw. And a lot of these are scenes where I actually do ride.
And they're all from memory.
Some of them are actually from the bike trail, and I do take my pastels with me on the bike. I can still ride, I just can't race. So what I do is I'll just carry them in my pocket or whatever, and sometimes if I see something, I'll just stop and just do a little sketch there, a color study, and then come home and paint a bigger one.
And you're completely self-taught.
I have taken a couple of classes, but yeah, just guessing.
Were you an artist as a child growing up? You just...
No, I mean, I did what every kid did, and take crayons and do stick figures and pictures of my horse and myself, but no.
You just had that need to capture what you were seeing.
Yes, and writing about it, it did in a sense, but not the same. It's just not the same as painting it. And I love it, and it always thrills me when somebody gets it when they see a landscape, and what I want them to see is not just, oh, that's a pretty landscape. I want them to feel what I felt.
The drama of the lighting.
Yes.
Well, I've heard several comments on your work. It's quite masterful.
Thank you.
It's amazing that you
Thank you.
have only started so recently and just jumped in with both feet like that.
Well, I'm kind of obsessive compulsive and a little bit of a control freak, so I do tend to paint all the time when I do work full time, and I do try to paint every day if I can when I get home from work. But it's just, I think that's what I love about the pastels. You can't control them. And it's the one thing that once I start a painting, a lot of times I'll have in mind what I think I'm going to paint, but the painting is going to do something else. And I think that's been so good for me to learn to just let them do what they need to do. And I'm always surprised, and I hope it doesn't sound too vain, but sometimes I look at these things and I think, I can't believe I did that. That was just a blank piece of paper, 2 hours ago. And it's just such an exciting thing to watch the pastels just do what I consider magic. They just do what they do. And you can put your hands in there, you don't need a brush, you don't have to wash anything, and they're dry immediately, says the person who uses a hair dryer on acrylics because they're too slow. But yeah, I love them.
And now, do you have an animal charity that you support with your artwork?
I actually have several. I have several animal charities that I support. For these paintings, since this is my landscapes, I am donating all the profits for any sales of these to environmental and wildlife charities, because I think the greatest tragedy would be to leave a world where the only way a future generation knows what a forest is by looking at a painting. I think that would just be the ultimate tragedy. So I'm donating all the profits to charities that protect our environment and make sure it's here.
And I know you do animals also, because I've seen those on Facebook. Very cool.
I do. That's the
portraits.
Current series I'm working on is the Souls spirit. And it's my animals. It's my cat and my dog. And I'm doing a whole series of them. And it's all about the different aspects of their soul. And I do believe they have a soul, and I can see it in their faces. And I have a couple of them done so far, which are the ones that you've seen. And I have a whole lot of others planned out to do those. Those will not be for sale, so if I ever exhibit those, they would just be.
Will you do commission?
I've only done one commission. The reason I don't do them is, like I said, I never really know what the painting's going to look like when it's finished. So it's hard for me if someone says, can you paint this? Two problems with it. One is, I don't know. Maybe, but I'm not sure. And the other thing is, I need to see it. I need to be there. And that's the reason the animals I paint are mine. I know them. I know their personality. To me, it's different when someone hands you a photograph and says, can you paint this? Because I don't know what made you love that scene.
Right.
I know when I saw these places, I know what made me stop and say, I have to paint that. And it may have just been one little ray of light, or it may have just been the way one shadow came across, or it may have just been the way one little branch on a tree looked. But I need to know what that is that made you want to take that picture. And without being there, it's hard for me to know.
So you have a website where people could see more of your work?
I do. I do. It's just my name. It's tammykaufman.com. And I'm on Facebook, and that is Tammy Kaufman Art. And I don't do any of the other social media because I don't have time between working and trying to paint in my spare time. That's all those two sites are all I can manage right now.
Well, your artwork is very reasonably priced, and I'm sure some of it gets snapped up for Christmas gifts.
I hope so, mainly because I would like to be able to give my charities the money. I don't do this to make a living. I don't do this to try to make money. And that's why I basically just want to make enough to cover my expenses, and then anything extra is a bonus that gets to go to my charities. So I'm very happy to do that for them.
Well, thank you so much, Tammy, for having an exhibit with us.
Thank you. It's great being here. Thank you so much.
Our January exhibit will be a student art show. It's the Student Art Festival, and that show will be hosted by the Women's Club of Clayton. The students who enter artwork for that could go on, the winners will go on to regional competition and possibly state competition. So the quality of artwork is going to be very high. We hope you'll join us. That's January 5th. Hope to see you there.